Tonight I leave familiar for the great unknown. Got a couple broken arrows and my hair is grown since you saw me last, talking on an old flip phone. Today I shed the skin of who I used to be. Got Sinatra on a 45, I'm buzzing like a bee. Just hoping you'll come fly with me.
All right, welcome to another Saynetwork Podcast episode. I'm your host for this one, Abraham Guevara, and with me, as always, I have Jib Sparks.
Hello.
Megan Villalpando.
Hey guys.
And this is it. This is our last episode of the season. You can call it our season finale, as the big boys do. And as with all season finales, there will be some twists and turns, and maybe a main character might be killed off. Who knows? Just stay tuned.
Maybe a behind-the-scenes secret.
Yeah.
Revealed.
Yeah, it's some long repercussions for the following seasons. You never know what's going to happen. I think we might be out of luck today, though, because we're recording this at the same time as the season finale for The Mandalorian. So, some of our efforts to shock you might go unnoticed.
It might shock you that I've never seen an episode of The Mandalorian.
Jim, we're gonna get our first batch of hate mail.
I've been at the Christmas distribution the last couple of days, and there's been a lot of Star Wars toys to be given away, and which is cool. And the ladies were asking for Baby Yodas. Plenty of asks for those, and I know those, so that was good. But we are giving away these 4 action figures from The Mandalorian, and I could only recognize one as a stormtrooper, but that's not even what the name of it was. And there's a lot of disappointment from those around me. I just don't know what any of that stuff is.
Jim, what was, since you're just fresh off of distribution, what was the toy that you saw the most, or kind of a common trend with the toys?
With it's interesting because it's a lot of data for me to take in. I'm constantly, it's like research, but surprisingly to me, the most popular toy ask, I think, would have been slime.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Really?
Slime. And we had plenty of it. So they got a lot of it. Legos are gold. The Minecraft specific Legos were that did really well. But surprisingly, slime was super popular. And I am also surprised at how many people like stuffed animals. They want a stuffed animal. And but yeah. What's always cool though is at the distribution that I'm at is they get to shop. The people get to shop. And what was kind of nice this year, because of COVID, there was only 5 people allowed in the gym, 5 pairs allowed in the gym at once, and we have a big gym. And so it gave actual time. It was less rush than you have like to try to pick, and it's a little less competitive because sometimes you get multiple people at a table trying to pick, and they're pining through. So it's kind of nice. But what was cool is when people could get something that is very, very specific that their kid has asked for, and it's a toy distribution. You don't know what's going to be there. And so like 2 incidents, both involved getting something for boys, where a mom, she was walking in, it was a 10-year-old boy, and I asked what he was into. Actually, I think he was a 12-year-old boy. And she's like, he's into Beyblades. And I was like, oh gosh, I have not seen Beyblades at all.
Yeah.
At all. I have not seen Beyblades.
I think that's an anime.
It's the little spinning things where you yank the string out and it spins and they battle. It's like really cool tops, basically. And I was like, oh gosh, I have not seen any, but I'm sure we could find something for him when we get over to that table in that vein. And it must have just happened, but there was a giant box of Beyblades, because I was at the table just recently, just sitting right front and center, and the lady goes, "That's Beyblades. That's exactly what he wants. And she started crying because she was so excited because that's
Oh, so
exactly what he
cool.
wanted. So that was cool. And then another one was a younger boy, and she's like, he's really into skateboards. And, a lot of the toy distribution stuff is about, Legos and like action figures. You get a lot of that kind of stuff. And I go, I have a skateboard. I have been riding it around all day, and it was a really nice skateboard. And so it was in the older boys section, but she was super, super pumped because that's all he wants. And so those kind of things are really, really neat when they could get specifically what they want. But no, it was cool. And I think, normally distribution happens in one day. But this happened over 2.5 days. And I think spreading it out made it actually more enjoyable for everybody.
There
Interesting.
was no rush.
No rush.
Yeah.
People didn't have to stand outside in line for a long time because they had to come. They're very specific in when they were able to come. And it was great. It was a very enjoyable experience. But lots of weird things too. I sent a picture to our team. There was a Lizzie McGuire Nintendo DS game. Santa Claus with Tim Allen VHS in that lot.
I feel like it was like you found a time capsule.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing. One thing that was wrapped was Glade air freshener replacements. I was like, oh, okay.
That's the gift that keeps on giving.
Nice. But some lady bought probably, I'm guessing, around 70 pairs of girls' jeans from Target.
Wow.
In multiple sizes. And that was super cool. Just came with a couple of big boxes, and they were brand new in the bags, shipped from Target jeans. So I don't know. It's like when things are down and everything is down right now, and you get to see what people do to help others. It's pretty neat. It's pretty exciting. And there was still good toys on the very last person walking through. Still very good toys to be had. So it was cool.
I second the popularity of Minecraft. My husband and I, we always like to adopt a family. So we're adopting half of a large family this year. And the boys really wanted Minecraft. And so we checked the Lego section. We checked like every section, and Minecraft was like wiped out. It's so popular. It was hard to find stuff.
Yeah, Minecraft is interesting. It keeps having these surges.
Yeah.
And then kind of goes away for a little bit and then has another surge. And so, yeah, it was
It's like
cool.
a new generation starts to play it.
Yeah. And then the other one's like, oh, I've been building something. I want to go back to that,
Yeah, my daughter loves Minecraft, Legos, and I second all that. I like those things. They're great.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, like one lady came through and she goes, well, we don't really get toys for our kids that they can't put together. So if there's any toys that they could put together, then that's what we're interested in. I was like, oh, that's very specific.
Wow.
I go, what about Legos? And she goes, no, we have 2 babies. We can't have little Legos because they'll just eat them. And I was like, well, that's really difficult. And I go, all right, so how old are your kids? Hoping that they would be older because then you could find stuff. And she's like, 4-year-old girl, not take away the babies, 4-year-old girl and like a 6-year-old boy. I was like, what? And sure enough, digging through, we found these like things where you could put together like a dump truck with using kinetic parts and stuff like that. It was so. She was super excited. I was like, I didn't know that these existed. But it always gets me nervous when they ask for something specific. I'm like, I don't know. But it was cool.
That's awesome. Well, guys, we're happy to have you all here listening to us, and thank you for joining us again and coming back. And in your busy season, and typically, what usually happens in our episodes is we do a little intro, then we move on to a youth culture resource, and we discuss it for a little bit. But for this episode, we want to do a little bit of a recap since this is our finale and this is sort of our last one. And we want to look back on the episodes and topics that had the most impact on us personally as hosts, as people who we've been around for every episode. And so Yeah, keep an ear open because if you missed the topic that might interest you, you can go back and check it, and we'll let you know in the show notes what episodes we reference. But we also want to make this a little bit of a jumping on point for those of you who've never listened to this podcast before, and you want to know what we're all about, what we talk about, and you haven't listened to any of our episodes. This might be helpful for you. I think we've gone through a lot of topics. We've gone through a lot of timely topics with regards to current events and politics and trends and all these things affecting the youth today and now. And I think we've also gone through a lot of timeless topics regarding ministry and theology and culture in general. But I want to ask you guys, what is like a youth culture piece that stuck out the most to you during this season of our podcast?
Well, I do want to kind of bring up, sorry, before we get to that, I like a very brand new one that had kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, took me back. So Mark Rober, who has a YouTube channel, does a bunch of scientific stuff. My kids adore him. But some people would know him from the glitter bomb video that he did, where he made a device where people, porch pirates, they steal a box off.
Did he do the squirrel one too?
Yes, and and it shoots glitter at him, and it shoots fart spray at him, and it has sounds like stuff like that. So he's done this. This will be his third one, and he showed it yesterday, and it had your typical reactions of people freaking out because it's got a countdown timer on it, so it sounds like it's going to explode. It's great and stuff, but there was 2 moments in that video that scare me with today's culture ultimately. And one, there was, he was more sophisticated this year, had more cameras out for different things, but there was some sort of incident. They had it looks like they're stealing headphones basically. And so they put it under a mailbox at an apartment complex, it looked like. And then simultaneously, there was heavy police activity for someone in that thing, and that guy was getting arrested. While this guy was getting arrested with multiple police cars, I don't know how many there were at the incident, a kid walks by and steals his package, right? He walks right by the police, right? Steal the package. The police don't know if it's his or not, so they wouldn't know, right? And they're busy. But in it records the audio and video of the people who steal it. And the mom is like, "Where'd you get this?" And he goes, I stole it right next to the police. And he's telling his mom this, and she goes, "Well," and you can tell she's like annoyed, but she's not disappointed. And then so I don't know, they're kind of go back and forth. And then he goes, "Oh, I really like this feeling." And she goes, "What feeling?" "Stealing."
Oh no.
That was his response. Jeez. And she goes, "Oh." And she's like, "Can we keep them?" She goes, "Well, the earbuds are mine." And so they're having this discussion of the kid, and he tells her that he steals it by walking by the police. And I don't know, that startled me a little bit. I was like, holy smokes, that's crazy, right? And then another one where it looked like it may have been the mom that had stolen it, and then they opened up the package outside and in front of their kids, so those kids know, and this is all learned behavior, right?
Right.
The kids are learning this. It's being modeled by
or
them.
it's like okayed.
Yeah, and then the last one, which was really scary, they put it in, this was in San Francisco, they put it in the passenger seat of a car, and it was during the day, and it had a bag around it, but the top was open, so you could see that it was headphones, and within an hour, the window got smashed and taken. And these guys were driving all over, and it doesn't say this, but they had a GPS tracker so you could see where these guys were driving. And it appears that they're just canvassing neighborhoods because they're just going up and down streets over and over again. And then eventually it leads to a point where the batteries were running out on the phones on the inside. And so he had the ability to text the phones, and he would audibly say the message that was texted. And these guys heard it. And he said, you could keep the things, whatever. I think he said something like you could keep it. And then the guys freak out, and then you just hear gunfire. Pop, 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 pop. and then everything shut off on on the stuff. And so like it was just like alarming, to say the least, of like what the capabilities are of people. And
Yeah.
now this represented 3% of the people that encounter the package. Right
Yeah.
now, 90% of the people just walked by the packages and didn't do anything, just let
Right.
them be.
Right.
And then 7% of the people actually on the packaging, you had the information to call to whose it was, and they would go get them, and they actually rewarded them for doing that. But what strangely, what surprised me more than the guns was the kids' reactions to these type of things. And these are, these are kids that are going to be in our care at some point, or could be in our care at some point. And that's scary that is so normalized in cultures. And so, yeah, that just came out like 2 days ago, and very, I don't know, as a youth worker, it's fun to watch because it's funny, the glitter bomb and the fart spray, people reacting to that kind of stuff. But to look deeper into like what's going on here is, it's very troubling for our youth.
Yeah, it seems like, I don't know, that reaction, I can't remember. I can't think of any parent acting like that when I was growing up with regards to those things. I do remember seeing that more and more as I got older. I did see, or like maybe when the parents my age became parents, maybe they taught their kids differently because of what they experienced. But yeah, it almost seems like the sort of, hey, stealing is bad, murder is wrong, and all these sort of normal things you learn. There's a little bit of justification nowadays with the things with wrongdoing, and I don't know if it's always been like that, but it does seem like I see it a little bit more often on Facebook or on Twitter. You do, when somebody does something wrong, right away there's a little bit of justification of wrong actions. It seems like it's becoming a little more normal to do that. Maybe that's a cultural thing. Maybe that's just something I saw one time. I don't know if that's a trend, but yeah, hearing that is exactly what that reminds me of sort of that justification that comes behind that.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, I think there is a little more prevalence of a culture of like, yeah, if you don't have something, like it's okay for you to take it from somebody who has, or has maybe the ability to afford something or whatever. Like, I do think I see a lot more, like you're saying, like justification of that. And I personally, I think it is like there's a little bit of cultural influence there.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I could tell you that when I was a kid, I mean, we didn't have a lot growing up, and we struggled and all that stuff. But my folks never let me justify any of those actions. If my mom had caught me stealing, or taking something from, even if it was from a kid that had another pair of sneakers, I would have been like, I wouldn't have woken up. I would have been in a coma to this day.
No, I definitely would fear for you.
So yeah, that's an interesting. It's kind of a sad trend, I do think that the church and ministry has a little bit to do. Like, we can speak into that, I think.
Yeah,
That
line where he just says, "I like this feeling,"
yeah,
and she goes, "What?" And he is stealing. I mean, I just was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
it's become a klepto.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It does make you think, like, what kind of guides the parents and the kids, like, morally, if it's not like the church, if it's not the Bible, if it's not like, if you're not kind of grounded in those things, like, I mean, what do you have anchoring your morals and stuff? So like, I think it becomes maybe easier to justify those types of actions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild stuff. So I went looking at this video to laugh again, my annual laugh. And then I walked away.
It got real.
Don't like this. But yeah, Mark Rober, good channel.
For sure. We'll link that. What's another youth culture piece that we've done in the past that might have, something that you're thinking of, something that stuck with you a little bit in some sort of way?
For me, it was the social dilemma one. We talked about that, I think it was in the encouragement episode, and it
Yeah.
was the Netflix documentary that came out. And, it was all about kind of phone addiction and these like extreme marketing measures that these social media companies take and stuff. And I still think about it. I think that's why it impacted me so much. I still think about it anytime I kind of like pick up my phone or whatever. I'm on social media a lot throughout the day because I'm, on the work account, and then I'm on my personal one or whatever. But it has me a little paranoid. I'm going to be honest. I feel like it has me, I don't know. I'm a little paranoid about privacy now, to be honest. Not because I'm looking up something bad or something, but just because, I don't know, like every movement you make, every touch you make, every scroll you make, it's all being tracked.
Every move
I was gonna say there's lyrics.
Y'all know I am from Oregon, and if I could live off the grid, I would. Like, I am paranoid by spying and all that stuff. I shouldn't own a smartphone.
Can't you see?
Thought about getting a non-smartphone, but that one had the
Get a
biggest.
Nokia brick. Just get that big old Nokia. That's all you need. I just need Snake. That's it.
Yep, that's all you need. I'll give up Mario Kart for that even.
Yeah, I was gonna say that documentary, that article, the documentary had a lot of impact on me as well. It's something that I still think about again, even when I'm on my phone. When I have the urge to look at my phone, I'm a little bit more self-aware about those things now. A little bit more. I don't know if my behavior's changed much, but I do feel a little bit more self-conscious about how much time I'm spending on my phone, how much time I'm spending online, and also a little more self-conscious of the itch to look at it. The like, oh man, what's on? I just saw a funny meme was like, you're like, you get bored on Facebook, and so you put it down, and your brain is like, now what? And so you just go and you pick up Facebook again. It's just like I'm a little more aware of those things. But yeah, that documentary. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. Go check it out.
Yeah, it did actually cause me to make a couple of changes. So, I have an older iPhone, so my battery dies by, I don't know, midday or whatever. So when I charge it, I try to charge it in a place where I can't see it, or I can't hear it, just to give myself like a break, I feel bad. Sometimes I do miss messages or whatever, but I'm like, no, I think that little break is really good. It's a good thing.
Agreed. Mine kind of goes along with what I brought up just a few minutes ago, but a lot of the articles that we talk about is youth focus or something going on in youth culture, because guess what? It's titled youth culture. And I don't know what the stats are over the 4 seasons when we've talked about this kind of stuff, but generally it's negative. Like there's something negative and we're responding to something negative. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it had me thinking, like, of all the stuff that we've talked about, whether it be, what the social media dilemma, to like sleep, to the psychology of youth, to the multiple things that we've talked about, even the lighter stuff is I think one thing that I've been missing as a perspective is the modeling of that behavior to them. Like, what is modeling that? And that's us as adults. And it's like, and so that's kind of been more like rattling around in my brain quite a bit, is what are we doing as adults to model this appropriate stuff, instead of being the guy yelling, get off my lawn and go deal with it yourself. But like, what are we doing to model some of that stuff? And so like, I'm laughing because as parents, we always tell our young kids, if they see someone that they know or someone from their school, go say hi to them, go say hi. Like we do that all the time. Like, go say hi to them, go say hi. And go ask them if they want to go play and stuff like that. And I was thinking recently, what if the kids did that in reverse to us? So like, what if we're at Target and they're like, Dad, there's Eric over there. Go say hi. Like, I'm not gonna say hi to him. What's wrong with you? and stuff like that. And it's and so we're not modeling the things that we were wanting always, right? And so something
Yeah.
as simple as being social, checking in on seeing how people are doing, or trying to be inclusive and stuff. We're not maybe not modeling that for our own kids,
Yeah.
not just our own family kids, but the kids at the core as well. And so as we're studying youth culture, as we dive into youth culture and read new things, I think we have to remind ourselves that what are we doing to model that type of behavior or those type of changes that we want to see when it comes to that, and as a church, what are we doing to support that type of stuff? And so, whether it be with the social media dilemma, well, are we pushing more social media stuff towards them? And then telling them you got to stay off social media, like we send very mixed signals, and a lot of it's trends based too. It's like something will pop up and then we have to switch our pendulum over and stuff. But I do think as youth workers and parents, and that we really, really need to be focusing on what that modeling that behavior is, so that when that kid says, I like this feeling, and you say what, and they say stealing, okay, well, we're going to have a conversation about that, like immediately, because that's not a proper feeling to be feeling when you steal something right underneath the nose of cops. Like that's a trouble. And so I think it's easy as youth workers to distance yourself from the youth culture as a youth culture expert and saying, well, they got to sort this out. But we have to be immersed in that and finding ways to model that type of behavior. And so if you're speaking, just to keep with the social media dilemma thing, if you're speaking and teaching all these things about putting God first and having quiet time alone with God and all that stuff, that needs to be modeled so they see it. And so if you're in youth group and the kids look over and you're constantly on your phone doing stuff, you are modeling the exact opposite of what you're talking about. You might not be consciously doing it because like Abraham said, you just, when you're bored, then you pick it up. Right. And so we have to be much more disciplined when kind of tackling these youth culture things and understanding them and understanding the why, kind of the deeper stuff, and figuring out better ways to model that, and maybe having to put rules in place just with yourself to be able to do that. So then when you're in Target and your kid says, hey Dad, there's Eric over there, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go say hi to him. And so that way they know that that's what you do. That's what you do when you see people. But I think if we looked right now, I would be like, nah, I'm not going to say hi to Eric. Look what I'm wearing. Are you kidding me? He doesn't want to see me looking like this. So that's kind of the things that have been standing out for me with the youth culture stuff. I read a ton of articles about youth culture, and I have found myself detaching myself from that. But I need to see how has that affected me first before I could address it with others.
It sounds like, it reminds me sort of like, what's the lady with the gorillas observing them?
Jane.
I can't remember her name.
Goodall. Jane Goodall.
Jane Goodall, observing the gorillas. That's how we are with youth ministry sometimes. We're just sitting there observing the gorillas, observing the youth ministry, but not realizing that like we're a part of it too. It's we're not just scientists, in a lab, or philosophers. We're a part of it, and we have to show the examples.
The gorillas are looking at us too.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's easier to like sit and kind of sit back and give a critique, or like kind of be a spectator in a sense, to actually get in there and actually model some of that stuff, like Jim was saying.
Yeah. It reminds me of a piece you brought up, Jim, in our I Go Hearts episode, where you talked about parents teaching kids to drive and parents having to be an example of how to be a good driver.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, letting off road rage, and your kids are in the back watching you, or,
Yeah.
You could teach them all the stuff you want, in the parking lot of empty Walmart or whatever. But that's the stuff that they're watching, right? How you're acting.
They've already been taught.
Yeah.
they're just putting it into action right now.
Yeah, and it's also kind of like they need to see they need to see examples of how to behave. And also, like, going back to that thing you were speaking about, the parents confronting the kids about stealing, like, the kids need to see the example on how to show remorse, how to show, how to make things right.
Yeah.
And so a parent has to sort of like step forward and be the one to lead the way in those kinds of things.
Yeah. And by the way,
And youth ministers. Yeah.
And if someone honks at me or motions a gesture towards me, and if my boys are in the car or if they're not in the car, my reaction will always be the same. Hopefully I'm modeling good behavior, but I have a big old smile and a big old wave to the person, as if I treat it as if they're recognizing me, and we've known each other for years, and this is the first time we've seen each other in years. So I have a big old wave and a big old smile. They think it's hilarious, but the people doing the gestures, I get mixed bag results. Yeah, no, it's true. We're modeling all of this stuff.
What interviews do you remember the most from the season, or what interviews are sort of the ones that have stuck with you?
I am still enjoying, and it's been a little while now, the excitement of Rachel Bach's interview of being a youth worker and being exactly where God has placed her. And I think, when you work in a place for a long time, that excitement wears off. And sometimes that excitement wears off after a few months. But it reminded me, like, just her enthusiasm and just like humbleness of it. It reminded me of, like, that's what got me so excited about youth ministry. Like of doing that kind of stuff and being excited for that, and being excited for the small things and being excited for the big things, and just full of optimism. And I think that's what drives being a good youth worker, is having that, and having that constant. And whether it be someone like Rachel, who's just, really getting full all in, to, like, I'm always reminded by this YPSM that I was billeted at in the Salvation Army. We have the unique opportunity to travel and just show up to random people's houses and stay the night, and they take care of you. And so mine was this lady in England. I think she is the Portsmouth Corps, and Auntie Anne is her name. And she, I believe, is still alive. But at the time, I think she was like 80. And she was the YPSM and had just this abundance amount of energy and joy in doing that work. And when I don't know, when I get a little stale or just like, I'm over this, I think back to Auntie Anne and, like, her joy and her optimism of just being like, I love what I get to do. God has called me here, and I'm so blessed to be able to do this. And I get excited, and I go back and do those things that make me excited. And just listening to Rachel kind of got that going for me again. And because this year's been tough, and it's been rough, and to hear someone with that much enthusiasm, that excitement in the middle of all this garbage, then it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool job to have, and it's a pretty cool place to be. And so that we are lucky.
Yeah, no loss in enthusiasm, regardless of the challenges and the circumstances. She's just like, let's do it.
Yeah.
That was 2 episodes ago. If you guys want to check it out, it's a Rachel Bach story. That was a lot of fun. Megan, what's an episode or interview that stuck with you?
So I had a couple. My first one, my top one, was actually going to be the Rachel Bach as well, for some of the reasons that Jim said, but also for a couple other reasons. I've had the privilege to interact with Rachel for the past couple years. I first met Rachel several years ago when she did Service Corps, and a lot of those personality traits that make her such a great youth leader, they just make her such a great person. They made her a great team member on Service Corps as well. And it's just been such a privilege for me to watch her kind of grow, just from the Service Corps days to now as a youth leader. I love her passion, and I don't know, for me personally, I'm probably being all sentimental because there was no Service Corps last year, but I feel like I'm extra sentimental about Service Corps this year. But yeah, just to watch her kind of go through and develop and grow in that process and see where she's at today is just such a blessing for me. And just that knowing that God used Service Corps as just to play a very small part in that development process is, for me, it's one of the most rewarding parts about Service Corps, and getting to really invest in and be a part of developing young adults. And so when you see somebody like Rachel now in just the exact role that God has, meant for her in this time, for me, it just brings a lot of joy and satisfaction for being a part of, again, just a very, very small part during Service Corps of that journey. So that for me is a blessing. The other one that stood out to me is actually just from the writing standpoint. I really enjoyed writing the encouragement episode that we did really early on. It was our second episode with Captain Caroline Rowe and Major Regina Scholl. I just loved reading that. And I think I loved writing it and working with them. And part of it too is that I got to go back and watch Captain Caroline's sermon or her message from WYI several years ago. And watching that, 3-4 years later, it still was so relevant. And again, we're in this difficult time with COVID and everything, the pandemic. At that particular time was, I know for me, a rougher time in this sort of season. And so going back and watching that just really spoke to my heart. And I just really enjoyed that whole process. And I think a lot of our listeners, it really kind of met them where they were at as well. So I think the whole idea of encouragement, it's just, I think we need that more than ever now. So I just really enjoyed that. And then I also enjoyed writing the disagreeing episode with Captain Anthony as well. I felt like for that specific time, that topic was really relevant. We were able to really connect with a lot of our listeners. And it was just fun kind of developing that again with Captain Anthony and working on that. So from the writing side, I really enjoyed those 2 episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna say the sort of the 3 that I remember and that have stuck with me and that I actually would recommend. That's one of them, the Disagreeing with Grace, because he's so great. Our interview with him was very insightful. He dropped some scripture. He just sort of like in his demeanor as well is very gracious. And so, I really recommend checking that one out. It really helps with it's very timely as with the things that are happening and sort of the way folks kind of act and the way we act sometimes online. So it's a really good one. The other one that really kind of stuck with me, and it still really does, and I think it even affects the way I work now, is the one with Keith Maynor, where we went over the National Salvation Army Youth Report. It wasn't only good because of the the information that it gives and sort of the stats, and I would actually recommend that if you're kind of new into the Salvation Army and youth ministry, go check that episode out, because he gives kind of like we do an overview of the report, but also sort of his the vision and sort of like the desire behind and the motivation behind what we do. It's kind of a little bit. It was a little sobering for me. It was a little bit of like a wake up call, but also a kind of a realignment of the mission. We need to reach out to kids and there are some that are falling through the cracks. And so what are we doing to reach out with them? And he brought up the prevalence of gaming ministry and how that's kind of been a focus and how that's kind of growing. And being a gamer, somebody who loves video games, I got really excited about that. But also made me kind of start to turn some wheels in my head on how can I use those things to reach out as well, and my own gifts and how to reach out to this generation with those things. So yeah, like on a personal level, it really got me thinking. After the episode, I started writing some stuff, ideas for reaching out with gaming and all that stuff. I just felt personally moved by that one. And the other one that really has stuck with me too, just on a good way, in a good way, in a kind of a lighthearted way, was the preaching and teaching fails with AJ. I don't think I've laughed in another episode that hard ever.
Same.
Like that was a lot of fun. I think we all had fun with that episode, and it's very encouraging because if you've ever failed on stage or if in youth ministry, or if you ever had a program that or event or something that didn't go your way, just go listen to that and be encouraged because we've all been there. So it was awesome, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, give me a second. Did any of these things? I think we kind of been over it, but is there any other way that these episodes that you listen to, did they trigger any changes maybe in your behavior and your thoughts and maybe your beliefs, your motivations? Did any of these have like just like on a personal level, a personal impact, a lasting impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think each one has their own, but I think the part that had the maybe more lasting impact for me actually happened right after the podcast, and that was with we did podcasts Meet the Hearts, the chief secretaries, and which are incredibly warm and nice people, and but when we finish the podcast, generally when we interview people, they bounce real quick because we're bouncing real quick. We fold up everything and get out of there. But they stayed after and started asking us questions about our families, and like they immediately modeled the very things that they were talking about in the podcast, which normally they just say and then you go. And sometimes you could just say things that sound great and go. And but they did that, and I don't know, did we spend another 25-30 minutes with them afterwards?
Yeah.
And then they finished by praying for each one of us, and to me that was just an incredibly great example of leadership, and it just fully supported everything that they just spent their time telling us. It wasn't a show, it wasn't talk, it's who they are. And
It's
so
authentic.
yeah, and I could be guilty of just saying things just because they're going to sound good, and but not believing them or modeling that myself. And so that to me had a significant impact on me in this season.
I think the hard thing with sometimes on a personal level with modeling those things, like modeling that, hey, I really care about you, and then like not bouncing, is the time thing. Like we always feel so rushed. Like I don't have a lot of time. I got to go run and do something. But to see them like take the time to just stop everything they're doing, it was so gracious of them and so awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
in addition to that, they had meetings. They literally
Yeah.
came in to record at the end of their meetings. And so we got done fairly late in the day, and they still took the time, even though they'd been in meetings all day. That I can't imagine, like, that's got to be exhausting. But when they came in, I like, you didn't get that feeling at all. You had their complete sort of like attention,
That makes me feel worse now, the fact that they already had a busy schedule and they had like no time. Like you don't have a ton of time and they still take the time. They make the time. Like that's such a good example and such a challenge to be on a personal level. Yeah, Jim, that's awesome. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, I think for me, the one, and I think this still is sticking with me, and it might not be for the best reason, but I keep thinking about the Keith Maynard episode as well with the National Youth Report, and specifically when we talked about that gap between elementary school and middle school and how we are losing that age group at a much greater rate than young adults. So I've spent the last, I don't know how many years of my job dedicated to young adult ministry, and kind of just pouring myself into learning about that and understanding, researching, and trying to support and grow young adult ministry in the territory, and working with divisional youth departments to make that happen. And with that kind of perspective, when I think about this age group, it just makes me so sad, just to think that we're losing so many at that age, because it's such a critical age. And not just like their childhood development, but like just in what's going on in their lives. I think they need community, they need support, they need their church family more than ever, I think, at that age. And so my mind has just been stuck on, what do we do about this? Because I'm type 1 Enneagram, and I like to solve problems. I like to have resolution to things. If I see something, I want to bring a solution to it. I want to address it right away. I don't like to sit and talk about it. I like to do something about it. And so I think in this case, my mind is just like, I keep going back to that, is what can we do? What can we do? How can we reach and see less of those kids kind of fall through the cracks? So that's kind of where what I've been stuck on.
Yeah, it's a bit of a call to action, and it's a good diagnosis of our current situation, and it's good to know what you're getting into. Like if you're starting out in youth ministry with the Salvation Army, it's good to know what you're getting into and what a good amount of focus should be. So, yeah, that's definitely lasting impact.
Yeah, and I don't think it's meant to be like negative, like we're failing, we're doing all this, but
Right.
we always talk about in our department, we always want to be honest about the actual
Right.
state of things, and this report really gives you the honest actual state of things, and that
Mm-hmm.
that theme in particular really, really stuck out to me, and I'm like, yeah, we got to do something about this,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we've been through all of the awesome episodes and all the things that have impacted us through all this, and we're coming into a brand new year. We got 2021 on the way, and I'm not gonna jump on that bandwagon of beating up on 2020. I know it was a rough year. We all had a rough time. Some of us rougher than others. But I don't want to jump on that. I like to be a little more hopeful, because ultimately what we believe as believers is in hope, and the hope in Christ, and that's ultimately what we should be espousing to folks and to our culture. But I want to know, what is your guys' New Year's resolution for youth ministry? What is sort of the maybe your vision, or maybe the thing that is pushing you next year to maybe think about for youth ministry?
Care more
Yeah.
in small things.
Mm.
I get lost in larger, deeper things, but just care more, enjoy things more, and small things.
I think for me, just find a way to make it happen. Whatever it is, like Service Corps or whatever project or whatever thing we're working on, just not being afraid to try different creative kind of solutions to make things happen. Given the kind of obstacles and things that we've had in 2020, I'm sure we'll be well into 2021, but just not being afraid to just go for it and explore new ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me is going into 2021 again with kind of a renewed interest to learn again, to almost relearn youth ministry, to relearn the things that I think I might have gotten the hang of, just to go into 2021 with a learning attitude. Like sometimes I get to the point where I feel like I've been doing this for a while, and I'm but I saw something really interesting. It was like this jujitsu post. It was really good. It was like have a white belt mentality, and so I thought to myself, I'm going to go into 2021 with a white belt mentality, going with that sort of like, I don't know everything, and there's still so much more for me to learn and discover, and we hope to do that for you guys as well, to help you in that learning part. And we'll share on this podcast all the things we learned for next season as well. We're looking forward into 2021 for a brand new season of the Saynetwork Podcast. Megan, why don't you sign us off?
Sure. Well, I was just going to say the same thing. We're going to take a little break, and then in 2020, we're going to start getting going on developing our next season. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll give some announcements on when that's going to be.
It's going to be huge.
Also, yeah, if as always, if you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us on social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Saynetwork. We are also on Twitter, actually, technically. I don't know when the last time we logged into Twitter was, but we technically are on Twitter.
It's funny that you say that, because last night I saw that sometimes it says reconnect with old, like those algorithms, and it said Service Corps. I was like, Service Corps got a Twitter account.
Really?
I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah, we could follow up on that. We're also,
See if it's been hacked.
seriously. We're also on YouTube as well at Saynetwork. And then if you would like to reach out to us through email, you can at sayconnect@gmail.com. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can ask us questions about the episodes, give us your feedback, comments, anything. If you've got ideas for our future season, let us know. We'll be reaching out on social media soon to kind of see what kind of topics you guys would like to talk about. And I also just want to say thank you guys for taking time and sticking with us this season and taking time to listen. Again, this COVID season, pandemic season, it's been unlike anything else I think any of us have experienced. But we thank you for your faithfulness and just listening. And we hope that the content that we're bringing is an encouragement, a blessing, and also a learning opportunity for you guys, just as it is for us.
That, guys. Thank you. And we'll see you next year.
See you guys next
See
year.
you guys.